And this type of information is helpful. But again, in order for us to be able to actually take the next step to freeze or confiscate in the United States, we need to link that asset to an underlying criminal offense. And in the United States, we don't have an illicit enrichment statute. That is, we don't have the crime of having money for which you cannot explain legal origin. So we have to prove official embezzlement or bribery or conflict of interest or bank fraud or wire fraud or interstate transportation of stolen property. We have lots of possibilities, but we need underlying criminal activity. The mere fact of assets greater than your wealth isn't going to be sufficient under U.S. law for us to freeze or confiscate. We look always for whether a foreign official who has assets in the United States that appear to be greater than their legal income, we look always for whether if they opened a bank account and didn't make full disclosure of their official status, if they opened a bank account in someone else's name, but they're the actual controller of the funds in those accounts. Because maybe that's bank fraud under U.S. law. So we look to be very creative about what the crime might be, but the mere fact of excessive assets or income doesn't meet the whole burden. Yeah, and I can provide that contact information either today or through my good partner, Anna Yanova, who works in the U.S. Embassy here. Thanks.
Just to add, in addition to what Mary said about making the information available to authorities, I very strongly encourage you to make it available to the public at large, because that will be picked up by the financial institutions. Financial institutions now have, at least the larger ones, monitoring system that they will pick it up. You know, everything that's on the internet. They will then see if that relates to any assets they have in. And if the suspicion is confirmed, they will have to report it to the financial intelligence units in their countries. We receive a lot of information on bank accounts because there's a link made to publicly available reports. Of course, it depends on the quality. So you know, if it's simple allegations, that can also be abused. But if it is a well-funded report of civil society, we greatly benefit from that. And that's something, you know, that makes me more optimistic, because very courageous people who are doing that. And that has a result. You may not see it directly. We may have limitations of what we can tell you about it. But it does work. It does produce significant results. At the beginning of a chain, you're playing an important role here. We certainly encourage you to continue.
Just 1 minute to reply to your question. We actually tested both ways. We submitted in April 2012 application to Austrian law enforcement. It was under the Yanukovych time. It was about senior state official Sergei Krylev and Andrei Krylev. They are big brothers. And we described not only property in Austria, which was owned publicly, but we also described, we linked this property to possible illegal activity and submitted everything with publicly available documents. And we never heard back from Austrian authorities. But when in February 2014 we arrived to Austria and met their parliamentarians, we found out that actually that application triggered investigation. It triggered investigation, these companies, they were searched, and it was a harm, you know, to untouchable senior official in Ukraine. And after Maidan, it was reopened. This case was reopened. Another thing which we did actually during Maidan, we launched a campaign, Yanukovych.info, when in a structured way, with pure legal facts, we put information about assets of Yanukovych and his associates kept abroad, with confirmation with documents, etc., of the origin of these funds. As much as possible we could gather, we put it into the dossiers, fund-based dossiers. We made it public, we made it in English, we communicated it with key decision makers across EU, and Euromaidans across the EU communicated down in the member states. So again, I'm sure it was noticed by FIUs, it was noticed by banks, and I'm sure that part of this information was used to report law enforcement. And now we are developing a database of politically exposed persons in Ukraine. First, we want to at least to call all PEPs, and we make it in English. And we want all Ukrainian and international banks to have access to that publicly. And our next step, we want to fill it in English with facts about their assets, about their suspicious origin. And here we could partner with you. I know that for Russia, it's probably the only way and the only solution to touch untouchable.
Наша дискусія, на жаль, дійшла до кінця. Я коротко спробую підсумувати те, про що ми з вами говорили. Я маю на цій сесії. Насправді, хотілося б імені всіх нас подякувати нашим іноземним партнерам, які котрий раз вже демонструють свою готовність допомогти Україні в проведенні злочинних актів. Я хотів би наголосити на тому, що на відміну від попередніх періодів, коли слідчим потрібно було йти до майна, нові інститути, які існують в Європі і інших країнах, такі як адміністративні санкції, набагато спростили роботу слідства, тому що більшість цього майна і рахунків було заморожено. Тобто є кінцева мета. На відміну від попередніх періодів, коли потрібно було йти до цієї кінцевої мети, зараз вона видна. Потрібно тільки знайти рівень, знайти доріжку до цих активів. Насправді це складна і кропітка робота і потребує серйозної роботи з боку українського слідства. Слідство це має дуже тісно співпрацювати з фінансовою розвиткою, має тісно співпрацювати з іноземними партнерами. Це має бути постійне навчання слідчих. Дуже багато викликів стоїть на шляху, але ще раз вважаю, що кропітка, тяжка, правильна, ефективна робота слідства, вона дасть результат, якщо це відбудеться. Для цього, як вже тут говорилося, дуже важлива політична воля. Дійсне бажання знайти, довести і повернути. Я хотів би подякувати нашим спікерам за ґрунтовні доповіді, нашим колегам за активність і бажаю всім смачного.
Він закінчився в 14:10, і ви розходитесь по тих залах і по сесіях, які ви вказані на здоров'я ваших колегів.